Always be clear where you get your conservative talk.
The St. Louis Business Journal is now reporting that liberal billionaire George Soros is the largest shareholder of Odyssey,
the parent company of KMOX and 97.1 Talk.
Soros' maneuver raises critical questions about the future of media ownership and influence.
Money and attention is power. And when he has the money and he controls what's on the radio stations, he's going to be able to control the minds, potentially hundreds of millions of Americans.
St. Louis's trusted source and number one
for conservative talk.
This is News Talk STL.
Profiles in freedom. Man, we could use a few of those right now. It seems like over the past few years in particular, not seems like, it has been. Our individual freedoms, just attempts to crush them. And depending on where you are in the country, completely crush them. So I could use a little profiles in freedom.
Yes, please. A little positivity in our lives.
New book coming out about that. You can order it right now. It looks like it's about to be shipped here in another couple of weeks or so. It was written by Carl Higbie, who you can see anchor every day, every afternoon on Newsmax TV, and he joins us right now. And Carl, hey man, good to talk to you again. I want to get to the book and why you decided to write that and why we need a book about profiles in freedom, especially at this time. But you cover the news like we do, on Newsmax TV. Want to get your thoughts on some of the things that are happening, because once I'm looking at everything that's happening, obviously Donald Trump's dominating the headlines. You've got the warrants for the Mar-a-Lago. That information came out with that. Obviously the trial in New York, which the defense is just resting. And it dawns on me just a little bit ago, Carl, that we've got all of this dominating the headline news, which I think is backfiring against the left in ways they didn't anticipate. But I also want to think, after all these years in the business, what are we not looking at? What should we be looking at that is not in the headlines that they don't want us looking at right now? That could be things like the southern border. It could be, the gun control efforts. It could be all sorts of things. But it's really frustrating that we have to have an instinct that says, okay, that's what's in the headline. What should I be looking at instead? What are you seeing right now?
Well, thanks for having me on. And, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the things I try to cover on my show is like, if there's something shiny right in front of you, like what's on page 2, and you've got a number of things that the left has been doing this forever. And I think the biggest thing that we're not paying attention to is Republicans are always trying to get people elected to Congress or state legislatures and things like that. But people like, Soros and the other far left radicals, they're worried about local elections where you have a DA where only 200 people show up to vote in an off-year election for this guy, and he's the one who chooses whether to enforce or not enforce the law. So you can get everybody you want elected to Congress or the state legislatures, but if the people who are tasked with enforcing the law don't bother because they're bought and paid for by Democrats, then it doesn't matter. And that's the left, for having such stupid policies on so many stupid things. They are so smart when it comes to how they integrate into the system and take it over, almost like a virus.
Good morning, Carl. Gabe Pfeiffer here. So we've seen the results of that virus all across the country. A lot of cities are in really, really bad shape. The formerly beautiful places like San Francisco are literal crap holes these days. Yeah. So what do you think the pushback is going to be? We keep expecting a political pushback of some sort. We're starting to see a kind of a cultural one. But are we actually going to see some real changes come through, or are people just going to sort of settle in and call this the new normal?
Yeah, I mean, here's the problem: is there's so many. I always tell people, people call me all the time. They're like, "We got to do something." I'm like, "Okay, do it." And they're like, well, and I always tell, just be the person that you're waiting for. Turn around and do it yourself. Get out there and, get signatures, run for office. Well, I've got kids. And then they say, well, I've got this. All the things that people list as excuses are not excuses. They're in fact reasons they should be doing more. But everybody is waiting for someone else to do it. And this is the problem. It's like the left has all this money from all these activists where they pay people without jobs to go do the things that they want to do. But Republicans, we got to go out and earn the money so we can pay the taxes that pay for the handouts that the Democrats give to everybody. So, yes, I realize it sucks to go to a school board meeting at 9:00 at night and listen to some bureaucrat pontificate about, tampons in the boys' bathroom, but you got to do it. You got to get loud. You got to stand up. You got to do these things. And if people aren't doing them, then the left's just going to win. And I always, my wife is, God bless her heart, but she is not an in-your-face person. She's very intelligent, loves to get involved on a granular level, but she's not an in-your-face person. And I always tell her that the fights nowadays you don't pick are the fights that you lose. So you have to pick every single battle, unfortunately.
Hey, Carl, it's easy to get overwhelmed when we're being hit by so many fronts, and that's probably part of the left's MO. That's probably part of the strategy. Overwhelm us. So is it a matter of I've got to be a jack of all trades and be ready to push back against everything? Or is there a case to be made to say, you know what? I'm good at this. I know this topic. This is where I'm going to take my stand. And man, I really hope somebody can hit back on the other area. What's the right approach? Because it is so easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I never encourage anybody to go break the law or anything, but be hard to govern. That's what it comes down to. Like during COVID, I mean, people were like, hey, how do you get away without wearing a mask? I'm like, well, I just say no.
Just don't.
What do you mean? It's a mandate. I'm like, well, I'm a 250-pound Navy SEAL. Find somebody big enough to slap it on my face.
Amen, brother.
I love that.
That's awesome.
And it's funny because we've actually said on this show, because we've got one of, we've got literally three in this area right here, a county executive, a mayor, and a governor of Illinois, then the mayor of St. Louis City on the Missouri side, and then a county one, who were some of the biggest tyrants when it came to the COVID shutdowns, all those sorts of things. We've been arguing, be ungovernable the next time they try this, because they are going to do it, Carl. Because they got a taste of what the power is like. And so many people said, well, the political person said I have to do it. I guess I have to do it. And it took years for them to even start questioning. And that's the part of the entire discussion I think that scares me the most, Carl, is that people don't have this instinct to say, no, you will not. You will not take control of me like that. I don't care what your elected office is. I won't do it. And we've lost that so much. Is that part of where the profiles and freedom concept came from with your book?
Oh, 100%. I mean, like, look, you've got a bunch of people in life, in the history of this nation, that did extraordinary things. Like some of our founding fathers, when they decided to risk everything for this country, were like 20 years old. I mean, most people who are 20 years old now are eating Tide Pods playing beer pong. Right? These guys were crossing the Delaware, liberating a nation. And even before that, I mean, there are so many people that have an untold story. Even people that you know, George Washington, Ulysses S. Grant, Frederick Douglass, and even Susan B. Anthony. You've heard all these names, but this book is like a series of really quick stories that you can read like one a night, one chapter a night with your kids, 5 to 8, 10 pages that tell the backstory of some of the people that did remarkable things that, like, you'll read this and you'll be like, I cannot believe that they did this much at that age for the cost of potentially treason.
Carl, I don't want you to spoil the book, but give us a little bit of taste of who we're talking about and what sort of stories people can expect to find in your book.
Yeah, so, I mean, we cover some political leaders, but people that you've never heard of, like Thomas Dermer, who we're talking, this guy was born in the 1500s, okay? William Bradford, William Penn, and obviously Hannah Penn, but also people in there like Andrew Carnegie. And they always demonize the industrial leaders of this country. But we really dive into in these 5 and 8, 10-page stories about how impactful they were. And I think you'll read some of these things, even like people like my father, who's very historically literate, very well read. He was reading some of these stories and it's like, wow, I had no idea the impact that Henry Ford had, the guy who, outside of Colt, invented the assembly line as we know today.
Hey, good morning, Carl. Stal Ponticus here. You made a slight reference there to reading the stories for kids. Is there any chance that this may come out as a kid's book so that parents could use it to read the stories to, let's say, 4, 5, 6-year-olds?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I wrote it, so there's no big words in it.
A lot of pictures?
No pictures, ironically. I fought for that. They said, you know what, Carl, let's keep it with no pictures. But at the end of the day, it is really made, it's written in a having a beer around a campfire mantra, where it's not, I'm not trying to like over-educate people because like I didn't go to college, I didn't do any of that fancy stuff. So this is written in a way that you can be having a beer around a campfire and understand how these people changed the course of history. And I always tell this, is like someone somewhere at every single time in life. And I dedicated this book to a guy in my life who was my high school wrestling coach, okay? He's a math teacher. His name's Brad Wallace. Fantastic guy. He's not a fancy guy. He would never say he's anything special. But this guy had such a meaningful impact on not only my life, but, hundreds of other kids in his 30-year career, because he just didn't put up with my crap. He was just a good person who told you it's like everything you do every single day changes the course of potentially history. Be the guy that makes everything better. And that was like one message that I carried through my entire life. And so I dedicated the book to him because I think we all have somebody in our life that maybe not is a huge, important person with a big name and a fancy house and fast cars, but change the world through other people.
We're visiting with Carl Higbie from Newsmax TV. You can catch him every afternoon on, obviously Newsmax TV. And so, Carl, when you talk about Profiles of Freedom, I want to connect where we started and where we are right now as we wrap up here next minute or so. And that is, we've talked about the loss of freedom. We've talked about the misdirection that we're seeing. We're basically talked about people feeling like we're losing control of not just our country, but our community and sometimes our own lives, right? So how do we connect what you're doing with this book to try to give people maybe that confidence or the encouragement or some sort of tool or resource to set things back, if not changing the world or changing the country, maybe changing something in your own community with the stories that you've found?
Yeah, it comes down to even the outside the book. It just comes down to giving a darn. Like, there's so many people today, and this is like what we were talking about earlier with the COVID thing. It's like you just got to care, and if things get bad enough, you start waking up the people who just want to be left alone. But at the end of the day, it's like the reason we got to where we are. I always say the country can survive a Joe Biden, it can survive a Barack Obama, but it can't survive an electorate dumb enough to keep electing these people. And it just comes down to the fact that people don't care. People don't do the research. People don't want to know. People don't understand the history of how we got to where we are. And if you just start caring, 5 minutes a day, spend 5-10 minutes listening to your radio show, listen to a podcast, anything to just get informed, you have no idea the impact that'll have on your generation and for future generations, because once you know things, it makes democratic policies nearly impossible to impose.
All right, the book is called Profiles in Freedom. It is looks like it's going to be shipped out in another week or so. It releases on June 4th. Carl, does that sound right? June 4th, I think it is. Yeah. So, but it is. It has been added to our News Talk STL book club, so you can find it newstalkstl.com. I'm literally about to place the order for it myself right now. But what else? What else is in the works right now for the program?
Well, actually, I was sitting in bed last night watching reruns of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is a great show.
That's a great one.
And this U.S. Army ad came up, and it was like the entire ad was talking about how this woman joined the military to sing in the chorus. And I'm sitting there, this is the stuff that drives me absolutely wild, because our U.S. military, your sole job is to kill bad guys and break things. Don't put commercials out about singing and about feel good and two moms and all this. Just kill bad guys so they don't come to my country and kill me.
We want the people who get excited about the idea of protecting America by killing bad guys and breaking things. Those are the people we want.
I joined because I was good at war. That's why I joined the military.
There you go.
We want those people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Carl, we've already tagged you on our social media. People want to follow what you're doing. Obviously, check out your show. What's the way to do it to connect you right now, whether it's social media, website, anything like that?
So all my social media tags, Instagram, Twitter, all just at Carl Higbie. Pretty simple. That way I can remember it too. But you can also go to carlhigbie.com. That'll link you back to my book and all that stuff. So, any support there, we appreciate it.
All right, Carl, well, you at least made one book sale today because I just ordered mine.
Well, hey, got to start somewhere, right?
That's right. You absolutely do. All right, great. Carl Higbie, Newsmax TV. Check him out this afternoon as well. Carl, good chat with you again. Let's do this again soon.
Thanks, Carl.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com.